I think of it as uncertainty is a multiplier that pushes things over the edge, so to speak. So think of yourself. If you are certain of 9 things and uncertain of one thing, how much does that affect you?
Focusing on the uncertainty is the only way to overcome it. Otherwise, you keep avoiding it, which we've all done and we all do. It's called procrastination. And it makes us what? More uncertain.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode number 1590, another thing Alan and myself are polar opposites with. Today, for episode number 1591, it's wild, we'll hit 1600 next week. One super powerful question to ask yourself when you're overwhelmed. I was on the Zoom machine today with a client, and we were talking about podcasting, but we very rarely actually talk about podcasting. My podcast coaching is all over the place. Sometimes we talk about relationships. Other times we talk about leadership. You never know. You never know what topic will get pulled out of the bag of topics. And this is the first time I've seen this client in the new year. And I said, catch me up. What's going on? And they said, oh, man, there's so much going on. I'm super overwhelmed. This has to change, and this has to change, and I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I got sick at the beginning of the year, and all this stuff. And I don't know about you, Alan. I'm sure you probably have a similar process or a similar way it happens. It'll make sense when I explain it. With this client, it's very easy. Things just kind of come to me, and then we have a conversation about it, and usually things just work out really well. I don't really prep. I just go in and we have a conversation, and then I try to just use my intuition, and I lean that way. Into my intuition popped this question. Ask this question, Kev. This is it. This'll help us. It's really 2 questions. What are your current 10 out of 10 certainties, the things that you are 100% certain in? You have hyper focus on, you know they're fine, you're not worried about them at all. And what are the 0 out of 10s? What are the things that you have?
Not worry about it.
It's probably what it sounded like as well to this client. What are the things that you have 0 out of 10 certainty? You feel like the floor might fall from underneath you. And we sat with it. And she said, okay, interesting. Let me think about that for a second. I haven't really thought about that. And then she started off rattling. 10 out of 10. This is a decision I need to make. This is a decision I need to make. This has to happen on this date. All right, cool. And just listed them. Okay, what are your 0s? And I think the only 0 was, I don't know how to do it yet. The uncertainty was how to execute, not what to execute on. So this person at the beginning of the call definitely was more overwhelmed or felt more overwhelmed than they actually needed to be. By the end of the call, they had a really good understanding that you're really good in 9 out of 10 places. You're certain. You know exactly what you're doing. The one thing is you just didn't know how to execute that thing. All right, cool. Let's look at the strategy, and then you'll be off to the races. When we're overwhelmed, I think it's, again, we've done many episodes on overwhelm, but I think one of the reasons is we're focused on the smaller portion of things. We're focused on the one thing we don't know rather than the 9 things we do.
Yeah, definitely.
And for a lot of times, or for a lot of us, and a lot of the time, that can cause hesitation, that can cause procrastination, that can cause some self-doubt, and then it usually results in somebody not taking action. And then you don't get the credit for doing the 9 things you actually know you should do. It's this weird thing. It's this one screw that we have to screw in that actually helps us screw in the other 9, but if you don't screw it in, everything kind of falls. So I wanted to do an episode on that because I thought, I know Alan will have a unique perspective on that, but whether you're watching or listening, the early next level nugget is, where do you have 10 out of 10 certainty? For me, I have 10 out of 10 certainty. Alan and I are going to do 3 episodes tonight, and then we'll do however many we need to get through the week, and that's going to happen. I'm not worried about that at all. Where do you have 0% certainty? Alan and I were talking about a book last night that I may or may not write.
Oh, yeah?
I don't have zero.
The podcast playbook.
Potentially. We'll see. I don't know.
Woo!
That could be the name.
The podcast playbook.
We'll see. I don't know if it exists.
The one and only Kevin Palmieri.
I don't know if it
and
exists.
Perhaps ghostwriter.
We'll see. You know, we're going to see what happens.
You used to ghost ride the whip, and now you're going to be the guy who has a ghostwriter and makes the stuff happen.
We're going to see. We're going to see what happens. I don't know yet. I don't have 10 out of 10 certainty. Yeah, I don't have 10 out of 10 certainty. I don't know how that's even humanly possible for me by the date we have determined.
July 1st.
Yeah, right? So even if you sense the energy with the way I said the first one, we're going to record 3 episodes today. We'll record however many we need. I cannot speak to save my life. However many we need to get through the week. When it comes to the book, I have very, very, very low certainty, which means I'm probably not going to do small behaviors that would help me get more certainty. Mm-hmm. Luckily, you helped me with it. So talk about what we're talking about here.
We at least created certainty around the outline.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know, Kev has we created a pyramid of foundation all the way up.
Of course, it was a pyramid.
Yeah, of course. And the fundamentals of how to start, grow, scale, monetize a podcast. And each one had, the outline is those 10 chapters. So there's an introduction, there's 10 chapters, there's a conclusion, and then each of those 10 chapters that are sandwiched within the intro and the conclusion have 3 sub-chapters. And so the outline is done. So you have certainty on the outline.
I have certainty on the outline.
And that's basically it.
Yeah, I would say that's it.
No other certainty whatsoever.
None yet.
None yet. Okay. This concept, I do this in coaching constantly. 2 things I want to share that I think are really valuable. One is the metaphor of the dialing in the lock. So a lot of people come to me and they think that they need to start from scratch. And they think that they're lost and struggling, overwhelmed. And they think, okay, I don't know any of the numbers in the lock. So imagine like a 6. What's a good example of this? Okay, imagine your iPhone or your Android, and there's a pin, and the pin is 6 digits. I think you can choose 4 or 6. I think I choose 4. But anyways, there's 6 digits. A lot of people come to me and say, I don't have any of the digits. Help me. What are the digits? When in reality, they actually have a lot dialed in. They just need a couple numbers left. They need one. I'm looking for the 1 digit you're missing to unlock the iPhone or to unlock the breakthrough. That's always the goal. And to your point, Kev, you mentioned trusting your intuition. That's really what it is. I get on the call, and last year I used to ask for intentions, and I used to have people that I coach come with an intention. I stopped doing that in 2024 because I want to trust my brain and my intuition to come up with it. If what you wanted was what you needed, you'd already have it, type of thing. Okay, so we get on the call. I say, catch me up. And they just start talking about everything going on in their life. And all of a sudden, there's this moment where it's like, boom, I know what we have to do. We have to work on this. And a lot of times, it's actually a courageous moment for me personally because I don't necessarily want to share this. So I was coaching someone earlier today, and I had to tell her that she was very naive. And not from a negative, detrimental, mean place, but from a, that true or false, you were really naive to let that person back into your life. And she said, true. I said, okay, why? Now let's go into the why. So anyways, to bring it back to the certainty thing, a lot of times, to Kevin's point, you have 9 things that you're certain about, and you're focused entirely on the one that you're completely uncertain about, which is keeping you sort of lost and outside of momentum. There's these 2 little formulas that I use. One is called the downward spiral of failure. The other one is called the upward spiral of success. I've blogged about this. Very, very simple. Kevin's seen me do this on coaching calls, team calls, department meetings. Okay. Less certainty creates less action, creates less growth, which creates what? Less certainty. So less certainty creates less action, creates less growth, which creates less certainty. Another way to think of this is you don't believe in yourself, so you take no action. And then when you take no action, you don't grow. And when you don't grow, you believe in yourself even less. Okay? What we need to do with that downward spiral of failure, Kevin calls it the confidence conundrum. You don't believe in yourself, therefore you take no action, therefore you get no feedback, therefore you believe in yourself even less, type of thing. Okay? So that's called being stuck. In order to shift that into the upward spiral of success, you need three things. You need clarity, you need competence, and you need confidence. And the way that you do that, believe it or not, is actually facing uncertainty. And I do this on department meetings all the time. I say, what are the sources of uncertainty? So it'll be our production team. Shout out to Ron, me, Ron, and Kev, Christina. Okay, what's everyone's sources of uncertainty? And Kev will say, honestly, I'm a little uncertain about X, Y, Z. Ron will say, I'm a little bit uncertain about ABC. And Christina will say, I'm uncertain about, W. I don't know the damn letters. You know what I'm saying? W.
It's usually, I'm a little uncertain about KEV. That's usually what it is. I'm a little uncertain about Kev.
Kev. A lot of times, yeah. I'm uncertain about Kev. And here's all we do on those sessions. All my goal is to figure out how to mitigate the sources of uncertainty. So every call, my clients will say, I feel so energized. I feel so ready. I feel so inspired. It's really just identifying and rectifying sources of uncertainty. And so everyone out there listening or watching to this, we're in trouble. Anyone out there watching or listening to this, there you go. What are the sources of uncertainty other than whether or not you want to consistently listen to us anymore after this episode? But what are the sources of uncertainty in your life? Is it finances that you're most uncertain about? Is it your relationship that you're most uncertain about? Is it your fitness regimen that you're most uncertain about? And it can be really annoying to constantly look at where you're uncertain. Because at first it creates what? More uncertainty, more pain, more overwhelm. But ironically, and this is the funny, comical part of life that sucks, focusing on the uncertainty is the only way to overcome it.
No.
Otherwise, you keep avoiding it, which we've all done and we all do. It's called procrastination. And it makes us what? More uncertain. So it's death by 1,000 cuts instead of one painful moment of, okay, let's look at this and let's figure out how to get clear on what to do about it.
This would be an extra next level nugget. I don't know. I've never verbalized this. This is the first time I've ever thought of it, so I don't know how it'll land, if it will land. I think of it as uncertainty is a multiplier that pushes things over the edge, so to speak. So think of yourself. If you are certain of 9 things and uncertain of one thing, how much does that affect you? I was going to use the analogy or the example of baseball just because it's easy to use numbers that way. Again, you might not play. You may have never played that sport. Think of your own unique thing. But I like to think of it from, if I went up to bat 3 times, let's say 4 times,
I got that sport as the sport of anxiety.
Baseball?
Yeah, because there's so much. You can't make an error ever on defense.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
And on offense, you're basically going to strike out 70% of the time.
Not strikeout, get out. You won't strike out 70% of the time, but you won't be safe 70% of the time.
I've coached a lot of baseball players. I'm telling you, there's a correlation of massive anxiety with failure and that sport. I'm just saying.
It's fair. It's fair. It's you and a pitcher, and then the best
the whole
person
team
wins.
Relying on you, and
the best person.
If you
wins.
drop the ball or miss the ball, you basically lose the game for people, and
potentially.
Let your entire team and the entire crowd down. So, anyways, that's just my truth.
Hi there. This is Dr. Tarryn McCarthy, and I am the host of the Business of Happiness podcast, which would not be in existence were it not for the one and only Kevin Palmieri. He helped me put it together with his great expertise, and every week his whole team works tirelessly to get these podcasts uploaded to Buzzsprout and to deliver my content to my audience. I am so grateful. I couldn't say enough about him. Please, if this is something you're considering, I highly recommend him.
I would argue that the players who are the best are the ones who... Well, no, because I don't know. This is the point I was trying to make. If I got 3 hits out of 4 at-bats, I would probably be upset that one time I didn't get a hit. I think that's potentially good. It can be constructive if you use it the right way. What would your opinion be of yourself in whatever example you're going to use? It might not be baseball or softball or hockey or soccer or basketball, whatever. It might be something completely different. Do you get hijacked by the one loss even though you have 9 wins? Do you get hijacked by the 2 things you did wrong, not the 8 things you did incredibly well? That's really my thought with this, because I think the failures or the uncertainties or the insecurities, those have a multiplier. It's like, well, yeah, I did that really well, but here are the 3 things I did really wrong. And if you're multiplying each of those 3 things by 3, they're not actually 3, they're 9s, if that makes sense.
And if you do hit the ball 3 times out of 4,
You're the best.
You're the best, right? But if all you do is focus on the miss, you're going to feel the worst. And I think that what you should probably try to compare to is the statistics. That's why I love numbers. You can just compare to the statistics, because if you miss 1 out of every 4, you're still statistically great.
Yeah, if you miss 1 out of 4, you're the best ever of all time.
Yeah.
If you hit 3 out of 4, you're batting .750. That's not even
a thing.
No. No. I think 400.
No one in history?
No. 4. I think the highest ever was 4. I believe it was Ted Williams. He batted like .420 or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you, baseball analogies. Side tangent. Kev, I reviewed you and I's first episode. I talked about this. And I keep going back. I've been doing a lot of that lately. I watched a video of us, and the amount of certainty we used to speak with is fascinating because it was fake certainty. If you've ever witnessed someone with pretend confidence, I've come down to realize I think that arrogance is pretend certainty. I think it's an energy, and I think people can kind of smell bullshit. You and I speak with way less certainty now, but yet we're way more certain.
This episode, I would just rather call it out and say, I don't really know what's going to happen in this episode, and this might be one of those ones you leave with more questions than you came with, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
But in the past, you and I would have...
Yeah.
We would have tried to know it or show that we know it. And again, this was unconscious. It's not like we were consciously trying to be arrogant by any means. But when I look back at those first episodes, it's very clear that you were trying to communicate with a ton of certainty, even though you had very little.
Yeah.
And now I think we have way more certainty inside, but we're portraying much less on the outside. It's like this weird thing. And what we're really trying to do is just portray the right amount of certainty. You know? And I think that's why we can be playful and joke when we screw up and all that. Whereas in the beginning, I think that would have actually bothered us.
Definitely.
Yeah. So anyways, just a little side tangent. So for those listening or watching, where are you the most certain? Because it's real. You really know what you're doing. You've done it before. You can do it again. And you know it. That's bucket 1. Bucket 2 is, where are you pretending to be certain when you're not? And it would be vulnerable to admit otherwise, but useful. And then bucket 3 is... I don't have a bucket 3. Which I think is hilarious because I thought it was going to come to me.
I've done that so many times.
Like,
these
so
are the
only
3
2 buckets.
These are the 3 things that I suggest. And after I said the first one, it's like, oh no. I don't even know if I'm going to have to make up a second one. I appreciate the ownership on that. I appreciate the ownership.
You got it.
This is one of those, this was literally a thought that I had at 2 p.m., and we're recording this at 4:30 p.m., so it's only been 2.5 hours. Alan and I have never talked about this before, so it's very fresh. It's a very fresh idea. But I thought it would be valuable. I thought it would be valuable from a self-awareness standpoint for all of us to sit back and think about it, because I'm very similar. I have to have these conversations with myself of, something happens, we lose a client or something. It's almost like I'm uncertain of that. I'm uncertain of how that affects all the things I'm certain of. And it's something that I'm working on just as much as anybody else can work on it. So if I'm practicing
Kev,
it,
question
I want to talk
for you.
about it. Yeah, sure.
I think could be wrong, but I want your take on it. Honest take. I think you used to, and I used to, without knowing I was doing this, without you knowing you were doing this, manufacture certainty versus having genuine certainty. Talk about it.
I would argue I probably knew I was doing it. I don't think it was unconscious. I think I was aware that I was trying to seem more certain or confident than I actually was. But I think that's, in retrospect, I think that's what I had to do to get through. You and I had no business I didn't feel like I had any business interviewing Lori Harder 34 episodes in. I didn't feel like I had any business interviewing certain people that early. I had to pretend I was more certain than I was. I felt like I had to. Now I think I probably could have just been funnier and more curious and more myself, but at the time, you don't really know that. So
And
yeah.
when you look back at old content, that's clear.
Yeah. I would argue you less than I. I think you had it less than I did.
I think when I get triggered from other people's insecurity or uncertainty, I think my insecurity comes from being disliked.
Mm.
So if I felt like I wasn't going to fit in or belong or I was going to be villainized or disliked, I would pufferfish and manufacture certainty when in reality I was actually really vulnerable. Inside I was feeling really vulnerable because I was afraid to be not liked. And instead of owning that and sharing that I was uncertain or scared,
Yeah.
I think I would manufacture certainty and pretend that which I think came off as arrogance. Unintentionally. So I'm starting to figure that out. But anyways, so for the listeners, that's hopefully a golden nugget for you of a lot of the people out there that are manufacturing certainty. Don't feel bad if you feel less certain than other people, because a lot of that is fake.
Yeah.
There's no one, I'm telling you, there's no one who's fully certain about everything. There's no one. We coach a ton of people. So the coolest part about being a coach, I'm telling you, is just all the perspectives. You just know that everyone's uncertain about something. They're just not all uncertain about the same thing.
Well, and the other thing is if you've ever heard Alan or I say something that made you think, you're like, oh, that was a good thought. I'm sure we've had a few, hopefully, in the 1,600 episodes. I hope there's been a couple. A lot of the episodes we do comes from conversations that we had behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always, I don't know, I think we have the best job in the world because we get to talk about deep stuff and we get to work on ourselves every day for a living, which is wild.
Yeah, that I agree with 1,000%. The fact that we get to work on ourselves and help others do the same, best job in the world.
I would say so.
One of the hardest, I think.
It's definitely challenging.
Yeah, one of the most difficult to sell.
It's definitely challenging, for sure.
I was joking about that earlier. I know we got to jump, but I said, the person that I said I was scared, I admitted, I said, I'm scared to tell you this, but I know you know that I'm trying to help you. That was, I think you were pretty naive there. And trust me, Mr. Naive over here, right? So I get it. I own it too. But this person is coaching with me. Coaching's the hardest thing to sell. Hey, come pay me to basically have you look at all of your inadequacies. And it's more than that, obviously. I'm going to inspire, motivate, educate. But it sucks to look at all your weaknesses, all your blind spots, all your inadequacies. But you actually build certainty with that. Mm. When you look at the castle and you go, oh, there's a hole in the moat, and a hole in the moat. There's a hole in the castle. There's a bridge on that moat or whatever. There's vulnerabilities, and then you shore them up. All of a sudden, you will have real certainty instead of manufactured certainty. And then after that, what else can you do? What else can you do? What else can you do? And then you get to a next level, pun intended, and then it reveals more blind spots. And then you shore those up, and then you get to a next level, and then it reveals more blind spots. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And the higher you climb, the more levels you go to, the more you realize, oh, crap. We need more oxygen tanks in the climbing a mountain analogy. We didn't, it's like, oh, my snow pants have a hole in them. Crap. That kind of thing. And you got to go back sometimes to the previous level and retool.
It's very clear to me that you did not take medieval architecture in your college years, sir.
No, definitely not.
The moat is a hole. If there's a hole in the moat, you're going to the center of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? All right, we're going to get out of here before things get super, super weird. Next Level Nation, if you have not yet joined our private Facebook group, please do so. One of the hardest parts of growth is doing it alone. Growth is hard enough, but never mind if you're going at it all by yourself. Surround yourself with like-minded people who want growth as much as you do. You can be vulnerable, you can be authentic, you can be yourself in our Facebook group, Next Level Nation. Link will be in the show notes, as always.
On YouTube, I'm showing the book.
The book.
For book club. The Courage to Be Disliked. I don't know how to pronounce these names. I will try. Ichiro Kashimi and Fumitaki Koga. This book was recommended to me by Jenna. Jenna's a community member, past team member. Shout out to Jenna. And it is awesome.
It's great.
We're going to do 5 chapters a week. They are short chapters. If we did, I think there's 50 chapters in this book, but they're really short. And this book is built on this really cool idea where there's this wise old philosopher who has studied psychology and all that. And there's this young youth who is trying to learn and is basically challenging this wise older person's thinking. And what comes of that is just awesome. So join us on book club. I'm super pumped about this one. This is definitely different than the ones we've done in the past. The link to register will be in the show notes. And you don't have to be having read the book or not. You can join anytime and listen in, or you can participate as much as you'd like.
Book club is a party, from what I've heard.
Real good.
I can hear the music over the fence. You know what I mean? I can hear the music. Every once in a while, a beach ball pops over to my side of the fence. I pop it, throw it in the trash. Screw you. You're not getting it back.
Book club is the real deal, my friend.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying quite
I had a
literally
client
the opposite.
recently.
Yeah.
I said, what's made the biggest difference? Because she said 10 out of 10 fulfilled. And when I first started coaching her years ago, she said 4. And she said book club. I was like, oh my God.
Interesting.
That's awesome. I'm going to need you to record that.
Yeah, right.
I'm kidding.
I support it. Put it on a billboard. All right, tomorrow for episode number 1592. Is your vision and your goals aligned? Alan and I were talking. Are your vision and your goals aligned, or is? I think it's is, but it sounds weird when you say it. So if it's grammatically incorrect, I apologize. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Almost all of this week's episodes are from today, whether it's coaching sessions or yesterday when Alan and I were in person for the entire day. So this week should be very aligned, probably very connected episodes, would be my guess. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we don't have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Talk to you soon. Next Level Nation.